Peggy Lee was an American jazz and popular music singer, songwriter, composer and actress, in a career spanning 6 decades. From her beginning as a vocalist on local radio to singing with Benny Goodman's big band, she forged a sophisticated persona, evolving into a multifaceted artist and performer. She wrote music for films, acted, and created conceptual record albums, encompassing poetry, jazz, chamber pop, and songs. Early life. Peggy Lee was born as Norma Dolores Egstrom in Jamestown, North Dakota, the 7th of 8 children to parents Marvin Olaf Egstrom, a station agent for the Midland Continental Railroad, and his wife Selma Amelia Egstrom, on May 26, 1920. She and her family were Lutherans. Her father was Swedish-American and her mother was Norwegian-American. Her mother died when Peggy was 4. Afterwards, her father married her stepmother Min Shamba, who treated her with great cruelty while her loving but alcoholic father did little to stop it. Later, she developed her musical talent and took several part-time jobs so that she could be away from home to escape the abuse of her stepmother. Lee first sang professionally over KVC radio in Valley City, North Dakota. She later had her own series on a radio show sponsored by a local restaurant that paid her a salary and food. Both during and after her high school years, Lee sang for small sums on local radio stations. Radio personality Ken Kennedy, of WDAY in Fargo, North Dakota, changed her name from Norma to Peggy Lee. Lee left home and traveled to Los Angeles at the age of 17. She returned to North Dakota for a tonsillectomy and was noticed by hotel owner Frank Bering while working at the Doll House in Palm Springs, California. It was here that she developed her trademark sultry purr, having decided to compete with the noisy crowd with subtlety rather than volume. Bering offered her a gig at the Battery Room, a nightclub in the Ambassador Hotel East in Chicago. There, she was noticed by bandleader Benny Goodman. According to Lee, Benny's then-fiancée, Lady Alice Duckworth, came into the Battery, and she was very impressed. So the next evening she brought Benny in, because they were looking for a replacement for Helen Forrest. And although I didn't know I was it, he was looking at me strangely, I thought, but it was just his preoccupied way of looking. I thought that he didn't like me at first, but it just was that he was preoccupied with what he was hearing. Quote, she joined his band in 1941 and stayed for 2 years. Recording career. In 1942 Lee had her first No.1 hit, Somebody Else Is Taking My Place, followed by 1943's Why Don't You Do Right, which sold over 1 million copies and made her famous. She sang with Goodman's orchestra in 2 1943 films, Staged or Canteen and The Powers Girl. In March 1943 Lee married Dave Barber, a guitarist in Goodman's band. Lee said, David joined Benny's band and there was a ruling that no one should fraternize with the girl singer, but I fell in love with David the first time I heard him play, and so I married him. Benny then fired David, so I quit too. Benny and I made up, although David didn't play with him anymore. Benny stuck to his rule. I think that's not too bad a rule, but you can't help falling in love with somebody. Quote. When she left the band that spring, her intention was to quit the Footlights altogether and become Mrs. Barber, full-time housewife. It's to Mr. Barber's credit that he refused to let his wife's singing and composing talent lay dormant for too long. I fell in love with David Barber, she recalled, but Why Don't You Do Right was such a giant hit that I kept getting offers and kept turning them down. And at the time it was a lot of money, but it really didn't matter to me at all. I was very happy. All I wanted was to have a family and cling to the children. Well, they kept talking to me and finally David joined them and said, you really have too much talent to stay at home and someday you might regret it. Single quote. so she drifted back to songwriting and occasional recording sessions for the fledgling Capitol Records in 1947, for whom she produced a long string of hits, many of them with lyrics and music by Lee and Barber, including I Don't Know Enough About You and It's a Good Day. With the release of the U.S. No. 1 selling record of 1948, Mañana, her retirement was over. In 1948, Lee's work was part of Capitol's library of electrical transcriptions for radio stations. An ad for Capitol transcriptions in a trade magazine noted that the transcriptions included special voice introductions by Peggy. In 1948, Lee joined Perry Como and Joe Stafford as a rotating host of the NBC radio musical program The Chesterfield Supper Club. She was also a regular on NBC's Jimmy Durante Show and appeared frequently on Bing Crosby's radio shows throughout the late 1940s and early 1950s. She left Capitol for Decca Records in 1952, but returned to Capitol in 1957. She is most famous for her cover version of the Little Willie John hit Fever, written by Eddie Cooley and John Davenport, to which she added her own uncopyrighted lyrics, and her rendition of Lieber and Stoller's Is That All There Is? Her relationship with the Capitol label spanned almost 3 decades, aside from her brief but artistically rich detour at Decca Records, where in 1953 she recorded one of her most acclaimed albums, Black Coffee. While recording for Decca, Lee had hit singles with the songs Lover and Mr. Wonderful. In her 60-year-long career, Lee was the recipient of 3 Grammy Awards, an Academy Award nomination, the American Society of Composers, Authors and Publishers Award, the President's Award, the Ella Award for Lifetime Achievement, and the Living Legacy Award from the Women's International Center. In 1999, Lee was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. Songwriting. Lee was a successful songwriter, with songs from the Disney movie Lady and the Tramp, for which she also supplied the singing and speaking voices of 4 characters. Her collaborators included Lorindo Almeida, Harold Arlen, Sonny Burke, Cy Coleman, Duke Ellington, Dave Grusin, Quincy Jones, Francis Lai, Jack Marshall, Johnny Mandel, Marion McPartland, Willard Robertson, Lalo Schifrin and Victor Young. She wrote the lyrics for I Don't Know Enough About You, It's a Good Day, composed by Dave Barber. I'm Gonna Go Fishin', composed with Duke Ellington. The Heart Is a Lonely Hunter. Mañana, Bless You, composed with Mel Torme. What More Can a Woman Do? Don't Be Mean to Baby. New York City Ghost, composed with Victor Young. You Was Right, Baby. Just an Old Love of Mine. Everything's Movin' Too Fast. The Shining Sea. He's a Tramp. The Siamese Cat Song. There Will Be Another Spring. Johnny Guitar, composed with Victor Young. Sans Saucy, composed with Sonny Burke. So What's New? Don't Smoke in Bed. I Love Being Here With You. Happy with the Blues, with Harold Arlen. Where Can I Go Without You? Composed with Victor Young. Things Are Swingin'. Then Was Then, with Cy Coleman. Her first published song was in 1941, Little Fool. What More Can a Woman Do? Was recorded by Sarah Vaughan with Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker. Mañana was No. 1 for 9 weeks on the Billboard Singles Chart in 1948, from the week of March 13 to May 8. Lee was a mainstay of Capitol Records when rock and roll came onto the American music scene. She was among the first of the old guard to recognize this new genre, as seen by her recording music from the Beatles, Randy Newman, Carole King, James Taylor and other up-and-coming songwriters. From 1957 until her final disc for the company in 1972, she produced a steady stream of 2 or 3 albums per year, which usually included standards, her own compositions, and material from young artists. Acting career. In 1952, Lee starred opposite Danny Thomas in the jazz singer, a Technicolor remake of the early Al Jolson part-talkie film The Jazz Singer. Lee played an alcoholic blues singer in Pete Kelly's Blues, for which she was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. Lee did the speaking and singing voices for several characters in Disney's Lady and the Tramp. She played the human Darling, the dog Peg, and the two Siamese cats, C and Am. In 1957, Lee guest-starred on the short-lived ABC variety program, The Guy Mitchell Show. Personal life. Lee was married 4 times. Each marriage ended in divorce. Guitarist and composer Dave Barber, daughter Nikki Lee Foster, actor Brad Dexter, actor Dewey Martin, bandleader and percussionist Jack Del Rio. Retirement and death. In addition to owning a Sparks, Nevada restaurant called the 50-Yard Line, Miss Lee continued to perform into the 1990s, sometimes in a wheelchair. After suffering years of poor health, Lee died of complications from diabetes and a heart attack on January 21, 2002, at the age of 81. She was cremated and her ashes were buried in a bench-style monument in the Garden of Serenity of the Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery in Los Angeles Westwood, Los Angeles, California neighborhood. On her marker in a garden setting is inscribed, "Music is my life's breath." Legacy awards. Lee was nominated for 12 Grammy Awards, winning Best Contemporary Vocal Performance for her 1969 hit, Is That All There Is? Quote, in 1995 she was given the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. Lee is a recipient of North Dakota's Rough Rider Award, the Pied Piper Award from the American Society of Composers, Authors and Publishers, the President's Award from the Songwriters Guild of America, the Eller Award for Lifetime Achievement for the Society of Singers, and the Living Legacy Award from the Women's International Center. In 1999 she was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. Carnegie Hall tribute. In 2003, There'll Be Another Spring, a tribute to Miss Peggy Lee, was held at Carnegie Hall. Produced by recording artist Richard Barone, the sold-out event included performances by Cy Coleman, Debbie Harry, Nancy Sinatra, Rita Moreno, Marian McPartland, Chris Connor, Petula Clark, and others. In 2004, Barone brought the event to a sold-out Hollywood Bowl, and then to Chicago's Ravinia Festival, with expanded casts including Maureen McGovern, Jack Jones and B. Arthur. The Carnegie Hall concert was broadcast on NPR's Jazz Set. In popular culture, the Peggy Lee Rose is a light pink hybrid tea rose with a touch of peach that was introduced in 1983 and named in her honor. Lee considered peach to be her favorite color. Peggy Lee was known as Miss Peggy Lee and was the inspiration for the Muppets' Miss Piggy, a stylish, self-assured blonde with a sense of romance. Peggy Lee's song, He's a Tramp, has been covered by many artists including the Chipettes, the BEU Sisters, Bette Midler, Diane Reeves, Liza Minnelli, and Steve Tyrrell. In 2015, the musical review Beach Blanket Babylon added a new song featuring a man in drag as Caitlyn Jenner. The song is a parody version of Peggy Lee's I'm a Woman. WOMAN. Bibliography. Autobiography. Peggy Lee, Miss Peggy Lee, an autobiography. 1989. Donald I. Fine. ISBN 978-1-5561-1112-9. Biography. Peter Richmond. Fever. The Life and Music of Miss Peggy Lee. 2006. Henry Holt and Company. ISBN 080507383-3. Robert Strom, Miss Peggy Lee, A Career Chronicle, 2005. McFarlane Publishing, ISBN 078641936-9. James Gavin, Is That All There Is? The Strange Life of Peggy Lee, 2014, Atria Books, ISBN 978-1-4516-41684. Album liner notes: Will Friedwald. Album liner notes: The Best of Peggy Lee, The Capital Years. Discography: Rendezvous with Peggy Lee, Rendezvous with Peggy Lee, Black Coffee, Songs in an Intimate Style, selections from Irving Berlin's White Christmas, songs from Pete Kelly's Blues, Black Coffee, Dream Street, songs from Walt Disney's Lady and the Tramp, Seychelles, Miss Wonderful, Lover, The Fabulous Peggy Lee. Peggy Lee sings with Benny Goodman, The Man I Love, Jump for Joy, Things Are Swingin', I Like Men, Beauty and the Beat, Latina Lily, All Aglow Again, Pretty Eyes, Christmas Carousel, Ole Lee, If You Go. Basin Street East proudly presents Miss Peggy Lee. Blues Cross Country, Bewitchingly, Sugar and Spice, Mink Jazz, I'm a Woman, In Love Again, In the Name of Love, Pass Me By, Then Was Then, Now Is Now, Guitars Lily, Big Dollar Panda, Extra Special, Something Groovy, 2 Shows Nightly, A Natural Woman, Is That All There Is? Bridge Over Troubled Water, Make It With You, Where Did They Go? Norma Dolores Egstrom from Jamestown, North Dakota, Let's Love, Mirrors, Live in London, Peggy, Close Enough for Love, Miss Peggy Lee Sings the Blues, The Peggy Lee Songbook, There'll Be Another Spring, Love Held Lightly, Rare Songs by Harold Arlen, Moments Like This, Film and Television, Film The Powers Girl, Stage Door Canteen, Banquet of Melody, Jasper in a Jam, Midnight Serenade, Peggy Lee and the Dave Barber Quartet, Mr. Music, The Jazz Singer, Lady and the Tramp, Pete Kelly's Blues, Celebrity Art, Television Mystery Guest on What's My Line, The World of Peggy Lee, documentary film produced for National Educational Television.